What's up, not a car guy here. Today I'll be installing lowering springs and shocks and struts. I got my buddy Josh Tibbetts, master of tidbits. Car guy Josh, how you feeling?
Good, feeling great.
Alright, let's get to it. Alright, first things first, loosen up those lug nuts on the wheels before you raise the car in the air. Then jack up the car. You can place the jack on the differential. That is an acceptable jack placement. You can see us placing jack stands under the axle. Do not do this unless you have adjustable pole arms, because you will need to raise and lower the axle in order to slowly release the compressed tension of the spring. And you won't be able to do this if you got static jack stands under the axle. Place the jack stands under the frame of the car.
Alright, so we've jacked the car up and we've put stands underneath the frame of the car, and then we've pushed up the axle with this jack stand here. And what we're doing now in the trunk is we're going to unbolt the struts. So once we take the bolts out of the struts, we can take the struts off of the car, and then we will slowly decompress the springs by lowering the jack, and that will slowly lower down our back axle, and we'll be able to pull the springs out and put new ones in. We'll push everything back up and put it all back together.
To remove the shocks, you're going to have to access the top nut through the trunk and remove these panels to expose said top nut. There are some clips holding the interior panels together, and Josh just used a screwdriver to pry them off. Josh is making a valiant effort not to destroy the interior of my trunk. God bless him. Note that if you aren't putting in new shocks, you don't need to take off the top nut. This is just so we can take the whole shock out. You can unscrew these knobs to pull the panel forward to make more room in getting the side panel out. After the top nut is exposed, place a ratcheting wrench over the top nut. Then use a pair of vice grips on the cylinder to keep it from turning. This should be enough to get the top nut loose, and you can unscrew it the rest of the way with your fingers.
So that should just push right down through there.
And after you get one, you can go ahead and take off the one on the other side.
Okay. Assuming we did this correctly, we should be able to loosen this bolt, and then we'll be able to pull the strut out, and we'll still maintain compression on the spring with the jack stand down there. And then once we get both the struts out, we will lower the jack stand, which will lower the axle, which will decompress the springs, and then we'll be able to pull them out.
Yep.
We're changing your struts, right?
Yeah. Okay. The shocks.
Oh yeah, your shocks. Struts are in the front. And if we did it, if we jacked everything up correctly, should be able to take that bolt out. Well,
the bolt might need a little persuasion.
Alright, you're not going home now.
Good.
So there's our shock. You can hear all the fluids flowing through it. I'll get it up close.
Now you can move to the other side and get the other shock out.
These feel like they've been broken free before.
Come on, get out of there. There you go. Bam. So now that the struts are out, we're going to lower down the back axle, which will decompress our springs, and then we'll be able to pull them out. Should be able to slowly how's the springs looking?
Decompressed.
Yeah?
They're pretty wide there.
Let's go a little further. There we go. That's as low as she's gonna go.
Alright.
Okay.
Right about there.
Okay. So what we're doing here is, because I'm terrified of springs decompressing and at a huge rate, I usually use spring compressors just as an extra level of safety. And plus this should help us be able to crunch that down without having to pry it out too much. We can actually pull the spring down, and it'll give us some more wiggle room to pull it out. So depending on what size it is.
Just a note, the spring compressors give a little more of a safe feeling, but as you saw previously, the spring was pretty much all the way decompressed without the compressor. The compressors often got in the way and made it difficult to get the springs in and out. I rented this pair of spring compressors from my local parts shop for somewhere around $35.
Oh, there we go. Hey.
Okay. What was that, 3/4?
In my opinion, you can safely take the springs in and out without the compressors. And as you'll see, we did not use spring compressors when we removed and put in the spring on the front passenger side. They really were just a pain and pretty time consuming. The job would have been a lot shorter without them. This is why you need to get new insulators to go with your new springs.
Put your new isolator on. And then we can take this guy. And we'll go up here like this. And I'll sit there.
Okay, so we need some pressure on there first.
So we needed to do that, and then I did this. I don't want to fight it. Locked. Oh, she's almost there. Okay, let's see if we can go a little tighter. All right, she done been persuaded into place. Just like that. Look at that. And
now we release the pressure. All right, so I managed to scrape a few of these, just decompressing, but the fact that they're blue will add extra horsepower to Will's car, being that it's a Ford, so, you know. Look at that. Okay, now we put your shocks in. No, we jack the car up. We jack the jack the suspension up, and then we'll put the new strut in, and then we'll be good. Or shock, rather, the shock, because it's in the back. We'll put the new shock in, and then we'll be good.
You're going to have to take the hardware off the old shocks and put them on the new shocks. Or if you want to buy new hardware for your shocks, you can do that too. But the old hardware hasn't caused me any problems thus far. Note that this cylindrical shaped shield should go on as well, but either it didn't come off or I forgot. Now just run the shock up through the hole and put the upper insulator top side in the trunk.
Alright, righty, tighty. Let's put that right there. Oh, come on, get in there. Oh, that's pretty tight. That's good. I think we're good there.
Next, just line up the holes on the bottom of the shock and put the bolt through.
There you go. Okay. Look at that, Will.
I like it.
It's almost like I know what I'm doing.
Close enough.
I will say, I've never done this before.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that. You're like, that's not that hard.
Well, I wasn't going to tell you until after we were done, and I knew I did it right. So, we've got our new spring in, and we've got our new shock in, and we're going to do it to the other side, and then we are going to put our tires back on and drop the car, and we'll be done with the back.
Why does that even clip onto
That. Right back there.
Nicely done.
Body panel clip screw on.
Do you look like a ghost? It's not my fault.
Okay.
Blame the sun. Or lack thereof.
Not a car guy and not a cameraman.
I'm a jack of no trades.
Definitely a master of none. Okay.
All right, so we called it a day yesterday because Josh had a photo shoot and a lot of other things that popped up that are out of your control when you're married. No, you're not married.
Whatever. No one needs to know that.
Good. So yesterday we called it a day because we had other things to do. So we did the back shocks and the back springs. Now we're going to do the front shocks and the struts. And yeah, so day 2 commences. We shall emerge victorious.
Giddy up.
Get the wheel off, jack the car up, place a jack stand, and let the car down. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is remove this brake line bracket from the strut. That gives us access to the bolt at the bottom of the strut. And then we're going to remove the top nut on the sway bar end link and remove the end link. But we're actually going to take the whole strut out since we're replacing it. But just to put in the springs, you don't have to you don't have to take the strut all the way out. But we are, just because we're replacing it. At this point, the footage might bounce back and forth between the passenger side and the driver's side because I got a better look at some stuff on both. Rest assured the process is the same for both sides. Just shoved a screwdriver up through that and pried it loose, and then this pops open like that and frees the wire, and then keep filming.
Yep.
So then you can pull this out. It's a little tight. Actually, we'll do these up here first. And the reason we're doing this is to free this up so that we can get this bracket loose. So the thing to remember is that there's only one nut that goes over the bolt. The bolt that goes on the bottom is just a guide, so if you're missing a nut, you actually aren't. Alright, so at this point, car guy Josh noticed that my brake pads were down to death. So we decided, since I got the rotors and the brake pads, we're going to do that today, but I'm going to put it in a separate video. Because we're doing that, we just decided to take the brake caliper all the way off and the rotor. And that's why it looks like this.
So if you have problems loosening this, loosening the bolts, what you can do is there is a little notch in here that you can just slip pliers over or slip a wrench over to hold it taut, and then you can break this free while moving this, and it won't spin.
Go out of the other. Alright. Well, if two of us have half a brain, it at least makes a whole brain.
Alright, now we're just going to put a jack under the control arm to keep the spring compressed so that we can then remove the strut. And we take out these two bolts and the spring will stay compressed while we can move the strut freely.
Yeah, so that's supported.
21 millimeter on this side, 15/16 on the other side.
We're just gonna break these free. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Yeah, there we go. Okay, and do the bottom. And then we'll come back with that back. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, there we go. All right.
So now we got the two bottom bolts loose on the strut. We're gonna remove it from the top mount, which is found in the engine bay. Right there. The screwdriver stops the cylinder from turning while you're trying to unscrew the top nut.
Oh, why are you getting tighter? Sweet Jesus, Will, this is really on there. Ooh, doggy. Okay, so there is a metal cap over the top. It looks like that rubber seal just falls down through because I just touched it and it fell through.
Alright, after Josh did all the work up top, I'm just gonna do that. Now we're going to lower the control arm to get the spring out.
I am triggered and offended, and I'm probably a little hungry.
Alright. You want me to do some wrenching on there? You film or?
Go, isn't it? Whatever. I'll try to get it out.
Alright.
I'm here. Come on. She's going right now.
Easy on that brake though.
What did this take us last time? Like 2 hours?
Something stupid like that. Look how easy that was. Only an idiot would spend 2 hours on taking out one of those.
Alright.
Be sure to vacuum out the debris in the control arm before you put in the new spring. You might want to scrape off whatever rust and dirt that might have built up over the years as well. The old insulator has these slits in it because if you try to put this around the new spring, around the new spring, it's not really going to fit right, and it's not going to have enough elasticity to fit around the bends of the spring. So we're going to put these slits in it so that it can actually fit all the way around and fit properly. Yesterday we split it down the middle as American Muscle did, and it was a pain. It didn't fit very well and kind of had to twist it, and so we're going to try this method and pray it works better. Cool. This doesn't stabby. Okay. See how it goes. So the idea, you definitely want the flat surface to be what lays against the car, so it'll be kind of on the side. Yeah. Sure. When you spray PV Blaster all over the place, you're gonna need some gloves because your hands won't be slipping and sliding. I think this might actually work. Freaking look at that. These guys on American Muscle are freaking morons. Why would we do it like the professionals did it? No, let's cut it down the middle. Don't do it like they did it. Like this. Jeez, look at this. It went right on. Perfection. Perfection. Put that on top. Oh, by the way, this on the front springs, you got a flat surface here, and that's what this goes on top of. It fits on nicely as long as you get the right insulator. So down on this control arm, there is actually like a spiral groove that starts low and then comes up, and that's where you want this pigtail to go. It's just to fit right in there like that.
Let it up. There you go.
There you go. Yes. Woo.
Man, let me tell you,
Ah,
2 hours on that.
we're in there.
Well, you got new springs all around your car now.
On all four.
All four. You're not lopsided no more.
When you're raising up the control arm, compressing the spring, don't forget to guide the end link back into place. Just keep an eye on that spring and make sure it doesn't pop out on you.
Okay. And you can hold it right there on the other side.
So with the new strut, I got new hardware, but what comes with the kit, we're not going to use all of it because like this piece is actually attached to this dust boot and I don't want to take it off the dust boot. So I'm just going to take this from the old strut and use it on the new one. So this is the nut that goes on top through the engine bay, or on top of the engine bay on the camber plate. We'll take this off. Here's your, what do you call this?
It's just a dust cover.
It's
Yeah.
something. Oh shoot, you know what? I need to clean this. Don't mistake your snot rag for your brake clean rag, because when you go to blow your nose, I don't know, you might like the smell of it, but it's probably not good for you to get in there. Alright, now that we've got that all cleaned up, spick and span, spotless, we're gonna put it on there, and then we take this metal piece, put it over the top, and then we're tossing this and that, and then keep this so then after we push this up through the engine bay, we will put this on top and put the that plate on, and then tighten it all down with this nut, but not until after we push it up through the top. Here's a good spot to let you know that a good set of ratcheting wrenches is definitely worth the investment. So now that we've fastened the top bolt to hold the strut in place, we're going to fasten the two bolts, but in order to do that, we need to jack up the control arm and then guide this into place so that the holes line up and we can put the bolts through. Got it.
we go. All right, and then we'll let it down. Steer clear. She's in.
Alright, I'm going to put this bracket back on. Won't be able to show you, but just remember that this goes out over the top bolt on the strut, and this goes over the bottom one, and then it's fastened with this guy here. This is a 15/16. If you didn't see, when you're doing this, make sure to put this one on first because it's got the most tension on it. Alright, from there we just put the rotors and the brakes back on and the wheel, and we're all good to go. And of course, here are some before and after photos to show you the comparison. Not only do the springs reduce the amount of wheel gap, which makes it look much better, but being closer to the ground also improves the handling. Maybe it's also the new suspension, but prior to putting in the lowering springs, the car would feel a little bouncy and not particularly stable at high speeds. If you stuck it out through the whole video, you get a big thanks from me. Please hit that like and subscribe, and remember, I'm not a car guy, but I will be. Giddy up!